How are he doing today? Now, most of you are probably more confused by what I said than offended. Sounds wrong. It was wrong. It was grammatically wrong. I used the wrong pronoun. Now, the thing is, it wasn't that I called you he, it was that I didn't call you you. I should have been using a second person pronoun. Instead, I used a third person pronoun. And I did this on purpose to make a point. Yeah, what are your pronouns? So far as you're concerned, my pronouns are you, your, yours. Yeah, it's the big thing today. What are your pronouns? You gotta declare your pronouns for people. I don't care what you call me to my face. In fact, to my face, you're going to call me you, your, or yours. Those are my pronouns that you use when you talk to me, second person pronouns. Third person pronouns you use when I'm not around. And so someone comes running up to me and says, I was just talking to Bob, and Bob used this pronoun to refer to you, and I just wanted to double check and make sure it's right. I'm less concerned with what Bob called me than the fact that you think it's your job to report what Bob called me. Behind my back, people have called me worse things than the wrong pronoun. When I was a little kid, this would upset me. Then I grew up and I realized, big philosophy. My philosophy in life is some people are just jerks, and what they call you behind your back doesn't matter. So there's the big deal, though. I have to tell you my pronouns so you'll use them correctly, even though you're never going to use them to my face. Went to a convention last summer, gaming convention, and they got the little gaming room. So you got your name badge, proves that you paid your admission to get in the convention. And then they had little ribbons you could attach to the bottom of them, giving your pronouns if you wanted. I didn't take one of these, other people did. The entire convention, I don't think I heard one person referred to by a third person pronoun. Even talking about someone not there, it's a gaming convention. Rooms full of geeks, people are referred to as blue hoodie or green hair or something like that. No one is referred to as he or she. There's all sorts of weird little nicknames basically describing people. It's not. 4 days I didn't hear one person use a third person pronoun. Did have people introduce themselves. My name is so and so. I'm someone running a game. My name is so and so. I use these pronouns. Okay, that was their choice. Not a problem with that. Of course, no one referred to them by their pronouns, though. It was basically useless information. I overheard. I was not in the room or not in the area for this one, but overheard someone running a game wanted everyone to go around the circle and give them their pronouns. This one I would have rebelled against. I would have come out and said you, your, yours, because those are the pronouns you're going to call me in this game. I don't care what you tell someone else I am. When you talk to me, I'm you, your, yours. I am not he. Hello, he, how's it going? You don't say that. You say, hey, you, what's up? Now, interesting thing about blue hoodie or green hair or whatever is no one really said blue hoodie or green hair. It was blue hoodie guy or green hair girl. So there are all sorts of gender words that are used which are not, no one cares about. For some reason, the pronouns are somehow sacrosanct and you have to use the right one, but you can still refer to someone as a guy or a girl and they won't get upset. This makes logical sense because, let's face it, we would have to not only say these are my pronouns, but we would have to go through every other gender reference and correct it. And we don't have the memory space to do that. Yeah, it's the sort of thing. Read an article recently. A person can do 6 or 7 things at a time. So I'm painting and I'm making a video and I'm occasionally checking what's going on out the window, and you know, and some of it's physical. I've got 2 hands. It takes 2 hands to paint, so that puts a limit on what I can do. Some of it's mental. I can paint and I can talk and I can do other stuff at the same time in my mind. And there's a limit to how many thoughts you can keep going, or how many different thought patterns or lines of thought you can keep going at a time. And like I said, according to this article, it's about 6 or 7. Depends on the person. So somebody driving, talking on their phone, which people argue, is that a distraction or not? And some people say yes, some say no. Okay, you're doing 2 things. Now, while you're having your phone conversation, you have to constantly run through your mind, am I referring to this person as by a gender? I've got the he, she, it memorized for them, but at some point I might refer to them as a guy or a girl or chairman or chairwoman, or I might come up with a non-gender statement. So I have to keep that running in the back of my mind. And if I'm doing this while I'm trying to drive and talk on the phone, I'm more likely to have an accident. Just because I've got this constant buzz going on in the back of my mind, distracting me from other stuff. So it can be done, but it can also be dangerous. And so, like I said, he, she, it, no one has to be called it. Someday I might say that. What's your pronoun? I might say just it, just to see how people react. But he, she, they. People want to go by they, even though it's grammatically incorrect. It's easy enough to memorize for a person. If you deal with that person a lot, actually. If you deal with multiple people and you have to keep checking, okay, what does this person want to be referred to as? Now it's a distraction and it can cause problems. Especially like trying to talk while drive, and you have to self-correct yourself verbally. You might forget to self-correct yourself driving. Bad things can happen. Now, not claiming there's going to be a rash of car accidents due to this. I'm just saying, if you think in depth of what's entailed in this, it's not just the pronoun, but then it's every other guy, girl, every other gender reference you have to self-correct yourself on. And you have to remember which people want which genders and etc. Then it can start to cause problems. Now, I've been saying he, she, it, or he, she, they, as I should have been saying. And this, of course, leaves out the non-binary, because apparently, if you go online and look things up, there are other things you have to call people. There are new pronouns being created every day, and I don't know what they all are. I do know non-binary people don't want to be referred to by gender. And some of them will say they is fine, and others have created a new pronoun for themselves. And my understanding is they don't agree on which pronoun it is. Now, the non-binary people, some of them have different pronouns than others of them. And I don't know if that's just a fact of there's a meaning behind them, or if this is the fact of individuals realized they needed a different pronoun and they made one up without consulting other individuals who wanted a different pronoun. And so we have multiple different pronouns for non-binary people. I don't know. Oddly, if I know 1 or 2 non-binary people, and most of them don't care if you use the wrong pronoun. So that's interesting. Some of them do, though, because obviously, there are, if you go online, you can look up and you can see there are different pronouns for non-binary people. Now, saw last year there was a court case. Well, don't know if it's gone to court yet or not. It was a major crime, newsworthy crime. I don't remember which one. I think it might have been the guy who attacked Paul Pelosi with the hammer. Can't remember if that was it or it happened at about that time. So it was that or was another major crime that took place. And when they went to court, they filed the pronouns they want. His lawyer filed the pronouns he wants to be used as. So, like I said, the case hasn't really gone to court. It's more just the preliminaries have been done. And that gets me to thinking. So, yes, we're going to have court documents. It's possibly a third-person pronoun will come up against this person, so they want to make sure the quote-unquote right one is being used. That makes some sense. I'm not an expert on court procedure, but I do know they avoid generic pronouns as much as possible. They want we don't want a witness testifying and saying he when there are three different people he could be referring to. I was attacked by three people and he hit me. Well, okay, which of the three was the he who hit you? And so they, throughout the trial, for the most part, they will try to refer to people by name or by some more specific description. The defendant, the accused, the plaintiff. They'll try to avoid he's, or he, she, they as much as possible. They'll try to be more specific, so the record will reflect who is actually being talked to. There's no confusion. I say he did something, and I could be referring to the defendant. I could be referring to the person who was with the defendant. I could be referring to the person who was with me. It can be confusing. So they actually avoid the pronouns as much as possible during the case, just for clarity's sake. The court records, do they use third-person pronouns or do they continue to use as specifically as possible defendant, accused, witness, whatever? And I would think they still, it's court record, people might use it in a future case, so they would try to keep it as clear as possible, which would mean using as specific a term as possible. So they're not going to use the he, she, they as often unless they have to. Or like I said, if really necessary, use the person's name, which they sort of avoid sometimes. I know during the trial they'll avoid it as much as possible for some reason. They prefer to refer to people as the defendant, the accused, but for court records, I could understand them using their name more often, just because things are done with you. You have the luxury of reading it at your leisure, and you can figure out who's being referred to better. But I would still think they avoid the pronouns when possible. I could be wrong on that. Like I said, not a legal expert, but that makes sense. And so I'm wondering if we're making this big issue of refer to my client by these pronouns. The witnesses aren't necessarily being coached on this. They don't necessarily know which pronouns to use. So is someone at some point in time going to be declared a hostile witness because they used the wrong pronoun? Because that's super offensive, And even meeting someone for the first time and referring to them by the wrong pronoun because they never told me their pronouns or their preferred pronouns, or maybe I've never met them. I'm talking to you and you've mentioned them and I've never met them. You never told me their pronouns because that's not something you do off the top of your head. And so I first meet them and they hear me refer to them by the wrong pronoun and get offended by it. it's super offensive to some people, even though it's almost unavoidable in some cases. Interestingly enough, I'd be more worried. When you meet someone, you should ask them their pronouns. People say, I'd be more worried about getting beaten up by someone for asking them that. A lot of people know it's obvious. I'm a man. I'm going to hit you if you suggest otherwise. And when you're asking them for their pronouns, you're suggesting otherwise. So, like I said, convention's coming up this summer, and I've already applied for it and put my things in. And they had a space in there. What are your pronouns? Or would you like your pronouns listed on your badge? So now it's not going to be just a ribbon. It's going to be on your badge. You can have your pronouns listed. And I put in you, your, yours, just to see how people are going to react. I don't know. They might not print that up. That might, they said you can choose what you want put on there, and I have a feeling someone high up is going to change their mind on that and decide maybe we won't let this guy choose and we're just going to leave it blank. Or maybe I'll get a call saying no, this isn't appropriate. Or maybe they'll actually do it. I don't know. I did it to make a point. It's a reasonable point. And like I said, I don't understand transgenderism. I don't understand all that or why people, I'm not, so I don't understand what's going on in their head. But I do understand that most of the world isn't used to it. And so turning around and getting upset and getting all up in someone's face because they used the wrong pronouns, it makes you look crazy. And some people want to say this stuff's crazy to begin with, so it matches. I've worked for a place where yes, they were very friendly to alternate lifestyles, and so part of the job was you didn't have to accept them with open arms, but you couldn't criticize them, which is fine, because it's a lifestyle choice in my opinion. And as long as you aren't trying to force it on me, you can do whatever you want. Don't try to force it on me. Don't try to force it on other people. And if it is wrong somehow, then any consequences to come up. That goes for everything. Like I mentioned, driving a car. If driving a car, you can get in an accident. You're responsible for the consequences if it's your fault. So, anything, this is a healthy lifestyle, this is an unhealthy lifestyle. As long as you live with the consequences and don't try to pass them off on someone else, I have no problem with you doing it. But if you're going to jump down my throat because I used the wrong pronoun because I just met you 5 seconds ago and never knew your pronouns, you're crazy. And odds are I'm not going to use the wrong pronouns because I'm going to call you you instead of he, she, they, or whatever non-binary pronouns are out there. And if you feel the need to tell me you use a certain third person pronoun, I want to have less to do with you because again, it shouldn't come up. And you're trying to force yourself on your opinion, your lifestyle, whatever, on me for something that I'm never going to use. Or if I do use it, you're never going to be around. So it's going to be some rat coming up and saying, ooh, Will called you this pronoun. Are you offended by it? That's a troublemaker. Now, even if you're offended by my using the wrong pronoun, you should be more offended by this troublemaker running around trying to report me for it. Because that's all they're doing is causing trouble. So that's it. Just wanted to point out, like I said, the whole third person pronoun and everyone lists their third person pronouns and all that. I find it silly. That's why I find it silly. You're free to disagree with me, but if you are going to disagree with me, give a good argument and don't just be emotional. Well, you're wrong. No, I'm not wrong. I gave an argument of why I think it's silly. If you want to disagree, give a good argument as opposed to just an emotional one. So that's it. Have a nice day.